Hello everyone, welcome back to our 7-day Cyber Security Bootcamp. I'm Marley, and I'm going to lead you through talking today about Wi-Fi security. We're going to cover everything from what it means to secure your network for Wi-Fi to keep the guests and the hackers from using your Wi-Fi, but also what's it mean when you go out to the public Wi-Fi? How do you secure your personal and your private data from people who are sniffing your data while you're on public Wi-Fi? Because it happens every day, believe me. Trust me, it's not that difficult to do. During this session, I'd like for you to go out and print out the documentation for this session and go ahead and make notes, a lot of notes, because we're going to cover a lot today. The Wi-Fi area is a pretty broad area. It covers a lot. We can't cover it all today. So if you have questions specifically to Wi-Fi, make sure you ask them in the Facebook group if you can, or send me a private message or email me and we'll cover those. Wi-Fi is it's very important, because if you don't do it correctly, you'll have people sniffing in your network or hacking in and utilizing your Wi-Fi for free and also having access to your documents. You don't want that. So before we begin, I do want to say that all practices, processes, and advice provided during this bootcamp is just meant to be informational, and all precautions must be taken to back up, protect your systems before any changes are made to configuration files, registries, or software installations. Network Computer Solutions assumes no liability for any harm or damage caused by you acting on our advice. NCS recommends all work be performed by a certified and trained IT technician. And all trademarks and products that we use or mention or logos we show in this presentation are all properties of the respected owners. Yesterday we got into antivirus and malware. We talked about how it's required for all products, whether it be Windows desktops, Windows servers, mobile devices, Linux products, PC, Mac, anything that you use except for iOS devices from Apple must have an antivirus on them. We also talked about the differences between free antivirus and paid. And I'll summarize again, if it's free, I wouldn't use it. And we talked about signature-based traditional antivirus and next generation, which we are utilizing for our clients, and the benefits of utilizing a next-gen product. If you're not sure all the stuff I'm talking about, or you didn't cover it, get it all wrapped up, you can always go back and review that. And day 3 was a pretty important day talking about antivirus. So far, we talked about passwords policies on day 1. We talked about Windows and program updates on day 2. We covered antivirus, anti-malware on day 3. And now we're getting into day 4, which is Wi-Fi. We're halfway through. Stick with me, make a lot of notes, and at the end of this, your network will be much more secure than it was on day 1. Who am I and why am I teaching this course? Well, I'm Marley. I'm the CEO of Network Computer Solutions, and we have a primary office located in Warsaw, Indiana. I began my IT security career in 1989 while serving in the United States Marine Corps. While in the Marine Corps, I was deployed to Operation Desert Storm, and I was primarily serving in Saudi Arabia. We had troops spread from our unit all the way from the front lines up into Baghdad, Kuwait, and back into Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And I was able to travel and support all those troops. My job was to deploy, manage, and safely safeguard all of the databases for our unit. We had information in there regarding personnel information, troop information, financial information, and we developed the database while in country, and we had to make sure it was safe and backed up. Not only were we dealing with personal information, we were also dealing with harsh environments. We had sand and heat, blowing sand. We had most of our offices and tents were in tents and hooches that were constantly being bombarded with all kinds of attacks, including sand. I have to say that not one day did we ever lose any data or any machines because of those kind of attacks. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to work in a private enterprise in the IT space. And I realized that private industries, both small business and large enterprises, don't have the same resources sometimes that the government and the military does. I also realized that very small businesses don't have any protection like their enterprise partners do. So I made it my mission to find a way to offer the services that Small businesses need to be safe and secure and do it on a budget they can afford. To give that same level of protection that enterprises get, but do it on a budget small businesses can afford. And that's when I found Network Computer Solutions, and we started doing just that. Today, I lead a troop of a squad of cyber technicians and engineers, and we manage IT environments and security for businesses all over the country. Our clients range anywhere around the spectrum, all types of industries. We have a lot of clients in the agriculture industry, the financial services sector, and the healthcare. If you think that you need assistance and we can help you, reach out to me and let's talk about the way that we can deploy systems and processes to make your network more secure so you never have to report to your clients or to the public that you've been breached and you lost data, especially if you're in a compliance-driven industry. Wi-Fi security. A wireless network is a requirement today for most businesses because you have people who are mobile in your office and they have mobile devices. And then you have people coming in for meetings and such, and they have to have guest access. But you can't just grant them access to your network because then you're asking for trouble. What typically happens before people really consider Wi-Fi security is they have a Wi-Fi password. It may or may not be encrypted. And what they do is they give it out to everyone. So someone comes into your office and your employees have a Wi-Fi password key, gets them onto the internet and onto your network. And somebody comes in for a meeting, a salesperson or whatever, and they ask, hey, I need to get on the Wi-Fi. Hey, what's the password? And the first thing your employees do, they hand out a password. Well, they handed out a password. It gives that person, unrestricted access to the entire network, not just the internet. And they have access to your personal data as well. So if they're infected with malware or viruses, you could get those very easily by allowing that. I think of that as like sharing needles. You're not going to let infected people come into your healthy office and spread and cough all over you. So why do it with Wi-Fi? So if you're in the process of implementing or designing your LAN, you have to take security as the top level priority. Because wireless signals typically propagate way beyond the walls of your building, which means if you give that password to somebody else, they can sit in a car after hours behind your building and do whatever they want to do, and all the liability comes back on you because you're the holder of that IP address and that internet connection. It's very common for people who break laws, whether they're doing, child pornography or terrorism, to utilize open access through somebody else's Wi-Fi. They don't use their own. Don't you be the victim of that. We'll tell you how to secure your Wi-Fi in this course. Also, just securing it through simple authentication mechanisms isn't enough. You have to have additional ways to both identify people and segment traffic from employees to contractors and guests in a way they can all get what they need but still protect your core infrastructure and your most valuable data. And what we're seeing a lot of today, which brings up why we're dealing with Wi-Fi, is BYOD. Not be confused with BYOB. Very similar, but you're bringing your own device, which means employees have their own laptops, mobile devices, tablets, and they bring them into your network or they use them at home, and they expect to have the same level of access that they do utilizing a company product. Now, from a business owner standpoint, it's a good thing, right? Because you get mobile access, your employees get access from anywhere, and you don't have to buy them all the appliances, all the computers, all the tablets. They spend their own money, and they want to work on it. What could be better? Well, the bad part is you lose control. If you don't do some sort of management on your computers and on your network for all those BYOD devices, you could have people bringing in infected devices from their home, bring them into your network, and you give them unrestricted access. They can populate the entire network with viruses and plant, malware, ransomware seeds. I know it sounds like it's the future, but that's the truth. It's happening today. And we're going to cover in this course how to predict it, how to prevent it, and how to stop it, and how to manage it correctly so that you're not a victim of a Wi-Fi attack. You ready to get started? Let's go. I have a formula that I developed for Wi-Fi access. In fact, I've used it on security access of all types, but primarily it's for Wi-Fi. 5W plus H equals X, security. Sounds like algebra. But what it is, it's a formula. You must know, you must satisfy the 5 W's and then understand the H in order to properly give Wi-Fi security. Let me explain. W, 1. Who needs access? Is this person part of your team and have they been trained in the proper security protocols? Or are they a guest who needs different type of access? You need to know who it is before you grant that security. That's 1 W. What do they need access to? Another question. Once you identify who they are, what do they need? Do they need access to a select group of files? Do they need access only to the internet? Or to everything that you possibly have, including your printers and your databases? Identify that as well before you grant the access. Where? You know, Wi-Fi is not ambiguous anymore. Meaning that just because I have it in my conference room doesn't mean I have to have it in my design area or my accounting area. With the enterprise level managed Wi-Fi today, I can set it up to where even though I have Wi-Fi coverage throughout my entire enterprise, my entire campus, I can set permissions so that individual devices can only access secure areas or any internet connection only in areas that I designate they need to have access. So a guest might come in and have access for the conference room access point, but as they wander outside of that area, if they happen to, they lose their access. That way you don't have to worry about somebody maybe streaming video or pictures of your organization easily through your Wi-Fi. When? Now? Or later? Do they need it all day long or just while they're there? Do they need 24-hour access? You know, you need to find that out because that's very important to find out that you don't just grant somebody open access 24 hours a day. Even your employees. Do they really need access to your Wi-Fi after business hours? You don't want somebody who you may not know as well as you think you do showing up after hours, parking beside your building and doing things that you don't want them doing. They could, steal files, they could access your most sensitive data and then send it out and no one's going to see it if you grant them access 24 hours a day. So set your permissions based on time. Why? Why do they need access? Ask that question always. Do you need access because you need to print? Do you need access to get to the internet? Do you need access to access our database? Whatever it is it required to perform the job and only give them access based on the level of need they need at the time? I know it sounds excessive. Wi-Fi is either typically on or off, right? It shouldn't be. Use my formula, 5W plus H equals X. X is ultimate security. So what is the H? You have to know how to do it. Just because they meet the requirements of all 5 and you've got all the questions answered, if you don't know how to deploy it, don't do it. Make sure that only the people who are properly trained to grant access grant the access. Don't give your passwords to everybody in the company and then they can randomly give them out to people that may need it. If they don't know how to secure it, then make sure that only the IT department or some trained personnel on your staff has the ability and the know-how to give out security access. I can't emphasize this enough. Keep this formula around, make sure everybody's trained on it, and you're much better off. How do you mitigate Wi-Fi security risks? I've come up with 8 simple best practices. They're included also in the supporting documentation you have with this course. And I recommend that you spend the time to get to know these and implement them in your network today. And if you do that, I guarantee you're much better off than you were yesterday. Let's get started. Number 1, separate internal secure users from guests who are insecure. That can be done several different ways. I've seen people do it simply with multiple access points. I've seen people do it with different passwords, but I've also seen it done with virtual LANs, virtual local area networks, which means when somebody gets on and they're an insecure user, they're not even on the same network as your user, so they can't even browse out and snip the packets. It sounds kind of technical, but if you're on a network your computer with the right programs has the ability to sniff out and look at packets as they travel across the network. If you put people on their own virtual network and every computer is isolated from every other computer on the guest network, they can't even see what's going on around them. It's like they got blinders on like a horse and they can't see left or right. They can only see their destination, which is the internet. So make sure that you protect this and use the guest function and make sure you segment traffic. There's a lot of Wi-Fi standards when you start studying security. If you look at it, the least secure is the old WEP. WEP, Wireless Encryption Protocol. I don't recommend you use this at all. If any of your access points are utilizing this, get rid of them now because it's causing you a big threat. There's only one place I can even think I would use WEP, and I'll explain that at the end of this course. The most secure is WPA2 Enterprise. We'll cover that in more detail in just a minute, but that's the most secure wireless security protocol available today, and we hope it only gets better soon. So the number 2 thing I'm talking about is enforce the use of secure encrypted protocols. WPA2 is the one of choice today. WPA2, there's 2 types of that. There is the personal and there's enterprise. The personal system, WPA2, is better than nothing, but it contains a pre-shared key that you have for all users who get access to share the same key. Very secure, encrypted, but not the best. The enterprise level does it one step further. It utilizes 802.11x protocol. And what it does, it means that every user that connects receives their own encrypted password, essentially, and it changes with every user. So if you give it to me, I can't give it to anyone else and give them the same level of access you've given me. You see how that's important? So look at WPA2, go look at your access point or your access point controller and verify whether it's a WPA2 personal or enterprise system and make the adjustments to enterprise. If you need help with that, reach out to us and we can assist you. Number 3, physically secure your access points. This isn't something that's very common. Most people just have access points sitting on their desks, or they have them sitting, they're attached to a ceiling or a wall that's very easily accessed. I don't believe that's the most secure way of doing things. Let me tell you why. It's very easy for someone to walk into a building, see an access point sitting on the desk or a counter or in a back room somewhere or on a wall, and they know it's broadcasting the right SSID. You can see it, say it says Office 1 or something, or your company name is the broadcast, but it has encryption protocols into it. Well, all they have to do simply, on most networks, is I can walk up, replace that access point, plug mine in, as long as somebody sees me, right? Plug mine in, it looks identical. I can have it broadcast the same network name with no security on it, and then I can connect to it, and good chance I can get into your network from there. It's kind of old school. It's kind of a lot of manual work, but it's done every day. Believe me, trust me, and it's so easy. Enterprise access points rely on a way that you can secure them, physically, with a special key or a special type of screwdriver bit, and it keeps you from replacing that easily without having that special key. Now, they're not unique to each application, each device, but it's something you only get when you purchase that brand of access point. So you want to make sure when you're done installing your access points, this one here, this picture's a ruckus, that you don't just throw the parts away or leave them laying around. You want to make sure you secure all those keys so that no one has them floating around. That way, if somebody does get up there, they have to insert the key the proper way, they have to have the key, swap the access point out. It makes it much more difficult. And you also look at, there's also Kensington locks as well. Some access point manufacturers allow you to apply a Kensington lock. You can actually put a cable through this access point, secure it to a secure part of your building so that if somebody was to pull it down, they wouldn't be able to remove it because it's got a cable strapped to it that makes it almost impossible to move without a key. So think about those areas. That's not something that most people think about when you think about access points, but it's very important in enterprise environments, in small business, that you do that. We talked about the signals of Wi-Fi, propagating outside of your building. That happens. You really can't stop it very easily. If you've got a very high-powered access point or a small building, you're going to have that happen. If you open up your phone today, your mobile device, and you look at all the access points that show up, I bet you're going to have a lot of them. I was in a big building that has a lot of businesses in it when I was recently in the city. And I pulled my phone up and I started doing some scans for a client. And there were so many I couldn't use my phone. I had to open my laptop up, pull my Wi-Fi scanning software out, and at one point in one building, I was picking up 98 access points that were all broadcasting, competing for the limited amount of bandwidth that's available, and they're all conflicting with each other. Now, the biggest part of that is that most of these access points were secure, but there was a few that were unsecure, meaning that they were open with no password required. So what's happened with that is anybody, if I couldn't get on the building, the people I was visiting, all I had to do was connect to one of the free ones or the open ones, and I could access anything I wanted to access. You can't stop Wi-Fi signals. It's kind of a physics thing. It broadcasts out, and you can't control what it's going through very easily. Now, you can design your building and the area so you can limit how far it goes beyond your walls, or also move the access point somewhere else in your building so it doesn't penetrate outside very much. But it's very hard to do. So what you have to do is turn down the signal level. You can turn down how much you broadcast, both it's called dB. You can also turn down, with the antenna you choose, how much you're listening. And if the less you listen, the less interference you have. The more power is not better. I see people all the time with Wi-Fi. They think that, I'm getting a little weak signal in this part of the building. I should turn up the power and get a bigger antenna. That's not the best thing. I explain Wi-Fi signal strength like this. If you had a radio on your desk and you wanted to hear some classical music and enjoy it while you work, but then all at once, you've got 5 people around you who are blasting with their huge speakers, the heaviest metal, and everything. There's 5 different stations going. And all at once, guess what? You can't hear your little music. You can't hear what you're asking to listen to. That's what happens on Wi-Fi. All the big, powerful people around you, they're so powerful and so loud that your little access point, your security that you're trying to use, just doesn't work very well. So you have to do things like you have to use a Wi-Fi signal strength scanner program utility, and you do things to figure out which channels are available. You have to figure out which one has the least amount of traffic on it. You have to find out, you can use to find out how far you penetrate beyond your walls. There's a lot of things that you can do to make your Wi-Fi better and more secure. Now, be careful of war drivers. A war driver is someone who drives around, typically after hours, and they drive through neighborhoods and office parks and everything, and they constantly have an antenna on their car, and they're looking for open access points. Once they find one, they pull in, get connected, and they see what they can do in your network. It may or may not be malicious. It could just be a game for them, but once they realize they have access, they can do anything they want to do, and you have no idea who did it. So keep in mind, that's a big threat. You need to detect and block rogue access points. A rogue access point is an access point that we talked about that can trick your users and your devices into connecting to them and broadcasting the same name. What they typically do is, we talked about before, when someone takes an access point out and they put a new one in the same name, they take all security off. It happens a lot in public Wi-Fi, say the hotel, the airport. When it may say free hotel Wi-Fi, and you connect to it thinking it's a free hotel Wi-Fi. You call down to the front desk and they tell you, oh yeah, our access point is called free hotel Wi-Fi. You connect to it. Well, the bad part is it may be someone else in a different room at the hotel or in the lobby broadcasting the same exact name. The difference is they send a signal out to make everybody disconnect from the current one, the real one, and then reconnect to you. When they connect to you, when you connect to their access point, they still give you internet access. They're not going to stop that. They don't want you to be suspicious, but then they're actually filtering all your traffic through their access point, and they typically have software on their laptops that basically read the data as it passes and looking for critical types of information like credit card numbers, social security numbers, email, and they steal information that way. Most of the Wi-Fi access point manager applications on the market today, they will detect a rogue access point, alert you that there is one going on, and they will also then block its access so it doesn't have access on the network. The next thing that you should be looking for, number 6, is a wireless intrusion prevention system, WIPS, W-I-P-S. And what it is most enterprise wireless security can include a dedicated IPS system, intrusion prevention. And what they do is they monitor the entire network. They look for those rogue access points. They look for AP spoofing. They look for access points or devices that are issuing a lot of packets all at once, and packet floods and malicious files. And once it detects it, it can not only alert you, but it can block it on the fly. So that if you look at this illustration I have here, there is a access point on the network. And it looks like there's a WatchGuard corporate Wi-Fi example on this particular example. And what happens is there's another device called we call it the evil twin. It's broadcasting identically to the first one, and it's asking for the client on your network to connect to it. Well, the IPS system that we have detected that system, sends a command to block it, and then it notifies all the other devices on the network to not accept it. It's like saying, hey, you see that guy over there yelling out who he claims he's the president. Well, he's not. So just quit listening to him. That's essentially what it is. This guy's out there yelling out the entire network, telling you who he is, and it's all fake. If you didn't have a system in place to block that, you might get some people who are fooled into believing that person is who they say they are. Be aware it happens, and you got to protect yourself from that. You need a wireless intrusion prevention system on your network. This is a big topic and very controversial topic. MDM, mobile device management. Since there's a lot of people utilizing their personal devices on your network, it becomes very controversial for you to ask them to let you filter content, install an application on their device, their mobile phone or tablet, to make it more secure. My opinion is, if they're going to have corporate data on their device, then they need to be secured through my MDM application. MDM has a lot of things. You have the ability to quarantine devices that meet security standards, limit their application they can install, and implement data loss prevention. What happens basically is we install an application we send a link to your user who has a mobile device. They click on it and they install an application. In the event that device is lost or misplaced, we can remotely wipe all the corporate data off of it. Now, I'm not looking at your personal files, your personal pictures. I don't care if those get leaked or not. That's your problem. But what I do care about is, if it's your personal device, anything that you put onto it based on my data, my personal corporate data, we're able to encrypt it and wipe it. We also require that all mobile devices that have access to our network to, one, have a password to get into it. Preferably, it's something that's more difficult to remember or use, so that a person who picks up your phone just can't access your phone, which has access to your email or your files. We also want to make sure it's encrypted, that if it does, nobody can even connect to it somehow and through software and remove the data. In the event the password ever is removed or the encryption is removed, we have the ability to remove all of our data immediately from that device. We also have the ability to detect if the device is jailbroken in the iOS world or rooted in the Android world. What that means is, jailbroken or rooted means you take off all the security protocols that are put on by the phone manufacturer to allow you to install third-party software applications, or maybe even to steal applications and install them for free instead of paying for them on the normal app store. When that happens, that makes your device very vulnerable to malware and ransomware. So if you happen to do that, our mobile device management application will block your access to our files. Now, you can do whatever you want with your personal files, but we will block access to our corporate network and our corporate Wi-Fi. We'll block that as well. We also have the ability to do geofencing now, meaning that maybe you want to grant mobile access to a device somewhere in the company, but not everywhere. Maybe you want to track if devices move in and out of secure areas. That's becoming more popular in some of our higher tech industries. You want to make sure there's no mobile devices in a certain area. With mobile device management, we can do that. We can find out where they're at, and we can also shut them off if they reach a certain area, or if they leave a certain area. Maybe you want to grant access to a mobile device only while it's in your building, or only while it's in a certain part of the building. And if you leave that area, we can kill that access. It's all possible using mobile device management and some advanced functions such as geofencing. The last thing is we want to limit support for legacy devices. There's a lot of them out there. If you see here the picture, there's barcode scanners, there's all kinds of equipment out there that people use on the shop floor or in your company all the time to input data or to scan data. The most popular are just old barcode readers that people use on the shop floor or on the manufacturing floor to track inventory coming in, inventory coming out. We also use it to track jobs as they're being processed through the manufacturing location. Some things are so old they don't support new security mechanisms like WPA2, or they don't support the addition of any kind of antivirus or malware protection. So what we want to do there is we want to restrict those devices to where they only have access to the local area network and only in areas where they need access and only when they need access. We can do that typically if, example, some of these older devices don't support WPA2, they only support WEP. Like I said earlier in the beginning, the WEP is the lowest level of protection you can get on your network for Wi-Fi. It can easily hack. It's just a simple passphrase that can be hacked. I say if you do that, let's build a virtual private network or a virtual LAN out, a VLAN out for these devices. We then grant them access to their own secure SSID, their own network name. And we'll hide that network name from the general public. And we'll also, on that, we'll set up MAC authentication. Sounds like a lot, but let me break this down for you. These old devices pose a very large security risk to you. And you want to make sure you protect them. So first of all, we create a whole separate wireless network that has no access to anything else, has no access to the internet, and we serve a different IP address with no gateway. Without a default gateway, these devices cannot get to the internet or receive information from the internet, only to your local area network. We also then set up on that access point at the lower level security. We also set up where only through MAC authentication, every device ever created on the network side has a unique MAC identifier. You can find that real easily. If you need help, reach out to us, we'll tell you. And you only allow access to that network to these specific devices. That way you don't get people out there connecting their cellular phones to these access points and then getting out to the real world without any kind of security or tracking. We don't want to use lower security standards, but sometimes we're forced to. So make sure you put a plan in place, document it, and talk to a professional before you just open it up to make sure you cover all your bases and you don't leave yourself exposed. Because otherwise, if you don't do this properly and you allow WEP on your network, what you're going to do is you're going to open up your whole network to basically like 1997 standards or something. I mean, come on. The technology has grown so much since then, but a lot of devices haven't. You also want to be in contact with the device manufacturer and see if maybe there's a firmware update that will allow the device to support newer protocols. Or maybe it's time to look into replacing the device and getting newer equipment. I know it's not always possible, but let's consider it and let's make a plan to do that. I do want to give you, lastly, 6 best practices for public Wi-Fi use. No matter what you do, it's hard to get away today without using public Wi-Fi somewhere. I like to say the best way to do it is bring your own Wi-Fi. I bring my own wherever I go. I don't use public Wi-Fi in very many places. Unless I'm in a hotel or somewhere and I don't have any cellular access, I just carry my own and I connect my laptop to it and I don't allow anyone else to use it. It's not uncommon to go to a trade show or convention. You're all sitting around and the wireless is slow, provided by the hotel. So you got a buddy of yours who gets his Wi-Fi out and everybody connects to it around you. You got to be careful because you're inviting yourself into those other computer networks, other people's computers, which may not be as secure as yours. They may not have gone through the 7-day cybersecurity bootcamp and they may not understand the risk involved. They can just have their home laptop or home tablet who's infected with malware, connects to everybody else, and then affects you. Once it infects you, you may take that infection back home with you and get in all kinds of trouble when you get back to the office. So what you want to do is bring your own Wi-Fi when possible. If not, you have to connect to public Wi-Fi and follow these practices, please. Use a VPN. If you have a virtual private network, you can basically hide all your data traffic from prying eyes. If you have back in your company network, you can set up on your firewall a virtual private network. And when your client in the field, your laptop or your tablet connects to the public Wi-Fi, we then will connect the VPN at the office, which means all internet traffic goes through that private tunnel. It's all encrypted. No one can see it but you. And the internet's actually being accessed at your main office, not at the hotel. That's a big step into securing your data. Keep browsing simple. When you're on public Wi-Fi, it's not a great time to do banking and secure sites. If you're in the VPN, you're relatively safe, but still be careful. I only want to do banking and secure traffic when I'm on my own personal Wi-Fi, and not when I'm on the public. Even with the VPN, there's still potential risk that someone could be keylogging you or tracking your movements, or possibly you could be on the wrong access point and not know it. You never know with public Wi-Fi. Update your PC. We covered this in day 2 about updates. This is where it's very critical. You want to make sure that you, 1, have secure password before you go on public Wi-Fi. Day 2, you want to make sure your PC is updated with all the third-party updates to make it less vulnerable. And day 3, we talked about antivirus, anti-malware. You want to make sure all that's up to date, especially you want to be running next generation. And that's what number 4 is here, is you want to make sure all that's up to date before you get on a public Wi-Fi. Use HTTPS. If you look at your address bar on your browser, what you're going to find is normally it says http://www. whatever website it is.com. That means everything you send back and forth to that site is totally unencrypted. And you could be infected with viruses, malware, or they could watch what you're doing. You want to make sure you add an S. https://. That tells you that everything that you send back and forth between your laptop, your computer, and that remote site is encrypted along the way, both especially in transit, meaning that no one can intercept that traffic and read it. So you still could get keyloggers viruses that people are logging your keys, but the traffic you send back and forth to that website is very secure. And lastly, when you're not utilizing Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on your mobile device, turn it off. People can't hack what they can't see. Your mobile device is not accessible if you kill it. If you put it in airplane mode, example, it kills everything. But I don't recommend that. You may want to get some cellular phone calls. But you can turn off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. They run your battery down for one, especially when you're in a building that has very weak signal. Your battery won't last long at all. But if you go and turn off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, you can secure your data, secure your device, and make your battery last longer. It's a win-win. So keep these things in mind when you're in a public Wi-Fi, and you're much better off, much more secure, and share this information with everybody you meet, everybody in your company, to make sure your data stays safe and your devices are not infected with viruses, malware, or attacked. Well, that's all I have today on Wi-Fi from day 4. I want to cover a review really quickly. 1, separate internal from external users to make sure that they don't cross, that your guests don't have access to too much data. You want to enforce the use of secure protocols like WPA2 Enterprise. We also want to physically secure your access point with special keys and Kensington locks to make sure they aren't removed and replaced. We want to be careful about war drivers and make sure your Wi-Fi signal does not go far beyond the walls of your building. We talked about a wireless intrusion prevention system. Very important to know that. We talked about mobile device management. That's very critical. As BYOD takes effect and everybody has their own device, they all work from anywhere, you want to make sure you have a mobile device management policy that all employees sign and that you implement and install on every device. If you don't want to have mobile device management on your device, then I suggest you don't allow them to have corporate access to email or any kind of documents. You're safe in that way. And you also want to limit support for legacy devices to make sure those old, antiquated devices don't have access to secure parts of your network and have no access to the internet. If you take these measures that we talked about today with Wi-Fi security, you're going to find that your network is much more stable and you're a lot less likely to get attacked. If you have questions about any of this, security or Wi-Fi, or you want to install an enterprise level Wi-Fi system, reach out to us. We'll meet with you, we'll discuss your needs and find out what we can do to meet your requirements and try to keep it under your budget, because it's really important that you don't just go out and buy a retail product Wi-Fi or use the Wi-Fi provided by the cable provider, because it's just not secure. So until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in day 5. Day 5, we're going to talk about the firewall, something that everybody has and everybody needs, but a lot of times it's totally misunderstood what it does and how to configure it. So we'll see you on day 5 tomorrow.